Hello, hello, and welcome to tonight's stream. Woo! It feels like it's been so long. You know what? It feels like it's been super long. And tonight's stream, we're gonna get back into it. We're gonna build up some of this momentum. Let me just. All right, let's go. Ah, ooh. So number one, I want to ask all of you, how's it going? Because I think the last time we did our stream was maybe Tuesday or Wednesday, which seems like it was which seems like it was at least 2 or 3 weeks away. But maybe that's just because I'm super busy these days. So it feels like time is moving like super fast. Fast or slow? It's moving faster. Yeah. Hello. What's up? आज हम बात करने वाले हैं डिज़ाइन के बारे में. So I guess a lot of you probably noticed this, but we have a new segment on our channel now. Okay, this is a recurring segment where we're going to be doing Q&A. Let me show you what this is going to be called. Okay, this segment is called Let's Talk Design. I'm going to call this episode number 3. We'll consider this one as episode number 2, and we'll consider this Monday stream as episode number 1. So today is episode number 3 of Let's Talk Design, and we're going to talk design. We're going to answer your questions about design. We're going to talk about what's happening in design. And as usual, if you're new to UI UX design, we want to help clear some of your doubts. We want to help you form new beliefs that can help you move forward. If there's any blockers that you're facing, hopefully this can be a good place to clear those. And yes, this is going to become a recurring, let's call this segment on the channel, Let's Talk Design. So looking forward to today. I hope you all have a lot of questions. Okay. And I want to just say, ask tough questions. I want you all to ask tough questions. Okay. Today's session, Let's Talk Design, this is dedicated to stuff like this, to, back and forth. So do ask tough questions. Okay. Before we get started, today is a Monday, right? So for a lot of you, it means start of the week. For people who are side hustlers here, maybe you don't really take weekends off. So for you, Monday is just another day. But I want to ask you one question, okay? This is this is just for myself, okay? Which do you think I am, right? I want to understand what your understanding of my productivity is, okay? So I'm going to describe two types of people, one and two, and you're going to tell me which one I feel like, okay? So who do you think I am, okay? Type 1 is I am somebody who's very, very productive, right? I'm just like, I have something to do. I put that down and I get that shit done, right? Am I type number 1? That's number 1. Number 2, am I a more chill person? Am I just like, bro, let's go with the fucking flow. Let's go with, the universe. Let's just do what feels right. Which type of person do you think I am? And the reason I'm asking this, you'll see why in just a sec. We're going to be talking a little bit about productivity and these kind of styles of working today. Okay. So, real quick, I want to see 1 or 2 in the chat. 1, I am somebody who is, and I'm asking about me. What's your perception of me? The reason I'm asking this is I'm going to talk about these two styles. Okay. Type 1 is figuring out something to get done, going right after it, doing a sprint and just clearing that. Okay. That's type 1. Type 2 is chilling, just figuring shit out. Which do you okay, I'm going to see some answers first. I see a mix of type 1 and type 2. Okay. Very interesting to see this. Okay. I'll have to later check out who won, which was the majority, type 2 or 1. But as I'm asking you this question, I want to ask this question for yourself as well. Which type do you consider yourself, right? This is your perception of me, but I want to ask you, if you asked the same question to somebody else, what would they say? Would they call you a type 1 or type 2? And the reason I'm asking this is today I want to start off with a little bit of productivity and then we'll get into Q&A. The reason I ask this, okay, which do you think is better? It's a trick question actually, because it's a trick question because ideally you should not be just one of these two types. Okay? The correct answer is you need to do both. You need to do both. Let me describe that a little deeper. Type 1, getting shit done. You'd be surprised to know there's a lot of amazing, very talented, creative folks out there who just cannot focus on one thing. They want to find new things to do. They're always chasing new creative projects. They're always on the lookout for something interesting that, is more fun to do, maybe more fulfilling. But if you're purely that kind of person, right, who's just chasing new, I know a lot of creatives who are type 2 who are just like, let's go with the flow. Let's figure things out. If something feels right, I'm going to do it. The problem is that's not really a good way to go if you're trying to be intentional about your career, right? The correct answer to which one am I am both, right? And I think most people are both. It's just a matter of which one do you let dominate your life even more. One of these styles of productivity, of getting stuff done, is absolutely needed, right? If you're somebody who just lives in the world of ideas, you might not be executing enough. I've seen a lot of talented, creative folks who just can never get that focus to one thing. And if they could, it would be killer, it would be insane, but usually they jump onto a second thing, right? A lot of people stay in exploratory phase for too long. They're like, I have gotten to this point in my career by exploring, so I'm going to keep exploring. But something you have to also realize as a creative is you cannot be just in explore mode all the time. Sometimes you have to be in exploit mode, right? I think I heard this. This is an analogy I heard on, I think, Gaurav and Bhavin's podcast, right? The founder of Unacademy, Gaurav, and Bhavin Turakhia, director. I think this was some event, okay? But basically, there are these two modes of explore and exploit. And the explore mode is what helps you get out there and see what's happening. It lets you dabble in a lot of things. But at some point, you need to exploit, which is you need to go deep into particular things, right? This is something that I really struggled with. The reason I'm even able to talk about this is something I've been through. Right? For the first couple of years of my career, I was just explore mode. I just wanted to do stuff that was interesting. What that means, however, is it prevents you from diving into certain projects. And usually the crazy results, right? You can keep doing different things, expecting crazy results, but crazy results often come with boring processes. It means just doing something, in a particular direction for weeks, for months, for years. There was a time when the longest, this was a good while back, there was a time when the longest project I had ever done was maybe a few months, right? So I could never imagine myself taking long-term projects, focusing on something for the long term. But now that has changed for me, right? That has changed for me because now I know that most of the gains that I've gotten over the past few years have been not because of trying a lot of stuff, which I also still do, more than I probably should be doing, but it means focusing down. So, the first thing I just want to start with is think about which mode you are in. Are you an explore or are you an exploit? If you have one leg in both of these modes, then you might not be fully going into one of them, right? Just something I thought I should bring up. A lot of people assume that creative work is all of type 2. It's just exploring shit. But no, it doesn't. It doesn't include that. A lot of creative work is boring, consistent work that you have to keep doing, right? So if any of you are learning skills, I would say, stick to it. Stick to it because a lot of the experience comes in the long term. But let's do some questions, folks. It's time for questions, okay? I'm going to play some music and we're going to answer some questions, all right? Kunal says 2 years of work experience in design or 2 years in MDes, which is more valuable. Kunal, the answer is actually simple, right? The simple answer is it depends. But if I had to pick one of these people, I would always pick the person with work experience rather than a design degree. But that's just me, right? Again, there's a lot of assumptions here, right? The assumptions is both of them are equally good, right? I don't know what exactly becomes the differentiator, but to give you a simple answer, it depends, right? I know people who've done MDes who are bullshit, bro, who've just chilled for 2 years, who've just gone and partied for 2 years and not really done anything. At the end, they just came to collect the MDes and they hope that gets them through. I'm being a little harsh because I want you to see the reality. There are people who just go to college, do nothing and expect a crazy outcome. There are also people who get into companies that suck, right? Companies where they don't make progress and they stay there for 5 years, for 8 years, right? Forget 2 years. And then they're like, I have 8 years of experience, but the industry doesn't recognize it because they are like, what have you been doing for 8 years? At 8 years, we expect you to be here, but you are somewhere over here, right? So the answer is it depends. The reason hiring involves interview processes is so that you can work through stuff like this. You never know who is going to be good. But the point is in design, I have seen people with 3 months of experience who are way better than somebody who's gone to a 4-year college. Literally 3 months of experience, 3 months of focused, or in some cases, maybe 6 months, but they were doing it as part of their engineering or something. I've seen people do this much, right? In terms of pure years, who are just way better. So don't chase years. People assume you can just go to a college, spend your 4 years here, do your dues, right? भाई मैं कॉलेज चला गया था, बस मुझे जॉब दे दो अब, राइट? मेरे पास पेपर है, अब और क्या चाहिए, right? Your journey literally starts as you finish college, right? That's when you really start testing what you have against the real world. You start comparing, you start really getting a sense of where you are. And whether you go to design school or self-taught, this is still something you will have to face. This uncertainty of how good am I really? How good am I really? And do I have the self-awareness to fill in the gaps that I have? I'll tell you this, if you have the self-awareness to find your own gaps and fill it, you're already ahead of 95% of the crowd. Because most people cannot even identify what gaps they have. Most people are, let me not say most people, I'm not talking in probabilistic terms, but a lot of people are in a delusional mode where they think that they're sitting on 4 years of experience. But the minute you start probing, you realize it's just nothing. It's very scary. It sounds that way, but I want you to just think about that, right? Years of experience, you could spend 4 years doing something which seems like busy work, and 4 years later realize, dude, I had nothing to show for it, right? So the very simple way to make sure you're not going down this path of, just wasting time is you need to have a trail of work behind you, right? As long as you have that, you can be assured that you're mostly going on the right path, which is, if you are a few months into design, you should have more than when you just started. If you are 1 year into design, you should have something that feels like you've been working for 1 year, right? Even if you've gone to design school or if you're self-taught, this is not negotiable, right? If you have been in the industry for a certain amount of time, you need to have work which shows this. Just number of years is not enough. It's what happened in those years. So it's a very tricky concept. Yeah. This is the answer. How do you see personal progress, whether you're growing or not? Your body of work, number one, needs to keep expanding in quantity the longer you work, but improving in quality, right? The way you get to quality work is by going through a lot of quantity work. I hope you understand that. We all want to be here in terms of our quality, but you're not going to jump from here like this. You're going to slowly make your way up by doing bad work initially, and then slowly fixing it such that you get to the point of quality. You've probably heard of this very popular story, I guess, where in a university, there were in a university class, 2 groups were made, right? This was a pottery class. So one half of the group, they said, you have to make as many pots as possible and you will be judged on the number of pots. And to the second group, they said, you have to make one amazing pot and you will be judged on the quality of that one pot. 3 months, 6 months later, when that course was done, who do you think had the better pots? It was not the group that had to focus and make one single amazing pot, right? Because those people typically spend too much time in planning and really figuring out what is perfection going into that, versus the group that had to make a lot of pots, right? They went through something called iteration, which is every single pot that they did, it improved on the previous one. So their average of what a pot was way higher. Overall, the moral of that story is that quality comes through quantity. You cannot skip quantity and get directly to amazing quality. You have to go through that grind of putting out quantity, of actually doing bad work, not getting demotivated by the bad work, coming back the next day, finding gaps, filling them, right? Still going out and finding new clients maybe. If you're in a company, really advocating so you can get really good projects inside the company. This is a continuous grind, right? You cannot get to quality without going through quantity. I'm being a little tough today. I will say this, okay? Since it is a Monday, I don't want to keep... I don't know. I want to talk about stuff like this because... I don't know. I feel like there are people here who need to hear this, right? It's not all fun and games. It is a hustle, that you have to go through. Let's take a few more. Okay. Okay, let's take this. Krishnendu asked, do you think Indian product companies and startups estimate designers with both the level of experience as well as design degree? The thing you have to understand, Krish and everybody else, is one of the reasons why startups will not ask for the degree is because it's a competitive market. Imagine this. Imagine you find a designer with a really good portfolio. What looks like a good portfolio, right? Without talking to them. If you reject them on the base of a degree, you might lose out on really good talent. When I say it's a competitive market, it means that there are more companies looking for amazing designers than there are amazing designers. The demand is way higher than the supply right now, right? There is still a shortage of amazing designers in the industry. We can talk about that all day. We can have an entire dedicated session to that. But the point is this: when any market has more demand than supply, all of these things which are good to haves get thrown out of the window, right? Things that are good to have, like let's say a college degree, they'll be willing to look over just because there is a lack of designers. So the real advantage there is somebody with a degree can possibly have an advantage over you, but it's not a guarantee, right? You can literally outwork somebody without a degree just by having amazing work, right? And again, I will say this, a lot of people think I'm against degrees. I'm absolutely not. I think college is a really fun, amazing experience. If you have the chance to go to college, you should definitely do it, right? I'm not suggesting everybody drop out. But I will say this, don't wait for college to happen. Don't wait saying that 5 years later when I graduate, I will be good. You can start right now. And it's usually not one or the other. So, in general, companies just look for people who are good. If you're good, you're in. If you're not, they will politely refuse, but that then is feedback for you to improve, to find out what gaps are. Let's take one more question. What do you think would be better in terms of not burning out? Freelancing in the same niche as your job or working in DICE? I'll answer this question in a bit. I don't fully understand the question. Maybe you can post it again, Yash. But yeah. Ooh. Nitin says, tomorrow I have an interview. Can you give me some tips? Nitin, I don't know what to tell you. I don't know whether you're at the perfect place or the wrong place. But here's the thing. With interviews and design, you cannot prepare for it in the same way that people prepare for engineering interviews, which is going through cracking the coding interview, mugging up definitions, understanding data structures, right? The point is, if you have an interview tomorrow, I would say about 60% of the outcome has already been decided before you do the interview, right? 60%, more than half of the outcome has already been decided. If you have a good portfolio, you're already halfway through, right? If you don't, then nothing can help you get over it. Maybe an interview can, but there are no tips. That's the problem, right? If you're good, you're good. If you're bad, you have a lot to go. So there is no way you can hack your way into it by accident. If you're good, you are going to make it through. If you're not, you are not, right? So that's the straightforward way. Great question, bro. Inshal says, if you have multiple internship offers, which one do you choose? What factors should you look at? Irrespective of stipend and good Glassdoor reviews. Inshal, the biggest thing you should look for is the people. In the end, if you're doing this internship, you're going to be here maybe for 3 months, right? Maybe for 6 months. 6 years later, 3 years later, after this internship is over, are you going to look back at it and say, what I learned in this internship really helped me propel forward? Or are you not going to remember it? Usually it comes down to the people. You want to work with people who become long-term or lifetime collaborators. There are people who I met at my very first job who I'm still in touch with. People I've done side projects with. People I've started companies with. One of the advantages of doing internships at amazing places is you get to build your network. So what I would ask, if you have multiple internship offers, you have to pick the one which gives you the best network, because that usually ties in with growth. The place that has the best network probably has the best growth. Why? Because if you have really smart people there, they probably want to do really good work. And the baseline of what is considered good can be higher in a really good team. So as much as possible, you want to find the best people and you want to go after that. What's up, Rakshit? As a marketer, should I learn, approach, and leverage design? 20 would want to add design as a skill, but not sure as a full-time career. The thing is, Rakshit, I think as a marketer, your relationship with design is mostly visual communication, which is you might not be the person who designs, let's say, flows, right? Let's say something like a referral flow. Or actually, as a marketer, you might, okay? But your understanding of design needs to be more of two ways, okay? Either you are more of a performance type of marketer, the one who does ads, or you're more of a brand marketer, right? These are the two types of marketers I've typically seen. If you're the performance marketer, the thing you would want to get deeper into in design would be things like CTR, click-through rate on something. How do you optimize? How do you design for conversions, designing for outcomes, right? But that's more if you're a performance marketer. If you're on the other side of things, which is brand marketing, then the kind of things you need to understand is maybe visual communication. How do you create consistent narratives that live, across social media, video, platform, community? Those are the kind of things you would get into. It will be less things like conversion rate. It would be more of how do you create, let's say, a really good flow of how new users should do, right? It would be more of things around that. So I guess that's the path it goes down. And I will say this, if you're interested in the second path, which is the brand experience, we are currently working on a new cohort. We're working on a new cohort called BX, which is Brand Experience Design. We are currently, I think either we've already closed the first cohort, or I think we're a few weeks from closing it, right? So we're going to be doing our very first cohort of this. If you're watching this video later, we'll already have a cohort out, most likely. But yeah, this is an experiment that we're getting into. One of the reasons for this, for the BX design program, is that marketers really can benefit from this. So who is this program for? Amongst others, design newbies, graphic designers, UI UX designers, marketers would really benefit from this. Yeah. Ooh, let's take some more questions. Devanshi is in class 12 and tried UI UX design. What next step should I go for? Devanshi, I think, to put it in simple terms, the way I'll tell you this is find what it is in design that you think you cannot do. What is that thing that you think you cannot do, that is too challenging, that seems out of your reach, right? You've just gotten started. I don't know what exactly it would be for you, but think about what is that, now that you know something, what's that next thing that seems out of reach, that you cannot very easily get, and then set that as your next short-term goal and go after it, right? So if that thing is maybe being able to design really good websites, or maybe it might mean designing something original, right? Maybe you can design with Figma, you can put something together, but you can't really create original work. Maybe that's the thing you focus on. Or if it's a case study that you want to do, you can do screens, but you cannot do full products, then maybe that's the thing you focus on. But wherever you are right now, you want to figure out what's that next thing that seems out of reach, make that as your short-term goal and just go after that. Because in design, there's so much more you can do, right? I think a lot of people, one of the reasons they get sidetracked is because there's so many things you can get into. You can get into 3D motion design, you can get into illustrations, UI UX design, web design. Maybe you want to get more into music as well. In the end, your creativity can be channeled in a bunch of different ways, including all of these examples I gave you. And you can eventually do all of these things. But for a job as your income stream, you can probably just do one, right? So I would suggest thinking really hard about what's that one thing you want to get into, the thing that will make you money. Because once you have money coming in through one of these, right, maybe you get only into web design and you're exploring all the other stuff on your own time. It gives you some freedom. Having one of these income sources, again, the person who asked this, she's in school, so maybe this is not as relevant. But everybody else who's exploring a lot of fields, realistically, only one of these fields will be the ones that make you money, right? And again, that's also a generalization. Maybe you can figure it out. But what I would suggest is picking one thing and going deep into that, right? At any given point of time. You cannot do 7 things at the same time. Yeah. Neil says, bro, can we start designing AutoCAD? Neil, what century are you living in, bro? AutoCAD, I've never even touched AutoCAD. I'm just kidding. Maybe you're talking about a different type of design. Maybe you're talking about product design, right? Designing this rubber cap, making a 3D model of this. That's not the kind of design we are talking about. We are primarily talking about UI UX design. Although all these other things around productivity apply to all. But Neil, I'm not the best person to ask, bro. AutoCAD is if you want to do physical stuff. If you want to do stuff like this. And personally, dude, that's totally out of my... let's just say I don't even know how many jobs are there for stuff like this, right? The reason UI UX design is a field I suggest a lot of people look into is because it's a field that's growing. With something like this, which is hard product design, it's not that much of a growth industry. It's been around for a while, right? There are people who have a shit ton of experience doing just that. So personally, I have no clue. That's what I'll say. Let's take Yash's question. What do you think would be better in terms of not burning out? Multiple niches on the same niche as your job. Yash, I would say you need to try both. Okay, you need to try both because it's different for different people. A lot of people are okay doing context switching, right? Like they can be talking about the deepest level of detail and then they can totally zoom out and talk about systems. They can be talking about something here and then they can very easily context switch to something else. Right? A lot of people require focus into one particular thing. So the answer is it depends. You would probably want to try both. Divyansh says, I'm into design for the last 1 or 2 months. I feel stuck. Divyansh, good news and bad news, right? The good news is that it's very normal. Most people feel this way because they don't feel like they don't have a path. It feels like there's too many paths out there. So that's the good news, right? You're not alone. Most people are facing this, and that's one of the reasons we do these streams, to be able to talk about it. The bad news is I do not have an answer for you because the way to make let me put this in an interesting way, right? The ways to make progress are a few, right? I can tell you a few ways to make progress. One of the reasons we have these cohorts that we run, whether it's BX or the UI UX design program, is because the ways to success, there are a few predictable ways that you can follow. There are a few predictable paths that within a few months, within a few years, you will make progress as long as you follow that path. But the ways to get stuck are infinite, are unlimited, right? So the way that you are stuck is probably unique to you. That's the bad news, right? There's no one single thing that I can tell you which says this is how you can overcome, because the thing that's blocking you is probably unique just to you. But my suggestion to you would be the things that help you make progress are probably common for everybody. So really think about what's that thing that's keeping you stuck and whether you can switch to a path that helps you make progress. That's the uncomfortable answer, right? Which is the things that help you make successful. There's probably a few of those. There's a few things that if anybody follows, they can make themselves successful, right? It's quite predictable. But the things that keep you stuck are unique to each person, right? And that requires real good self awareness. तो काफी मुश्किल है ब्रो, नहीं पता. Manas has some questions. I think Manas's question was, Manas has been selected in C4. What should I do before? What should I do before getting into the cohort? So, real quick update on that. The applications for cohort 4 are closing this week, right? So, this is actually the final week of applications. People who've been selected, people who've already been through the entire process, my suggestion for you, my number one suggestion for you would be to check these streams out, right? Because you start getting this momentum, right? When you're watching these streams every week, one of the things you're doing on the side is you're building a habit of coming back and learning, right? And then in between, when you're not watching, you are probably thinking about maybe you're experimenting. Right? So the first thing I would say is watch these streams. Number two is I would suggest getting really familiar with Figma, right? Learning Figma takes you probably less than a week, right? And it'll have a huge advantage if you enter this cohort knowing Figma already. Although if you don't, in the first week, we will go through that. First 1 or 2 weeks are all about Figma. But a big advantage you can have if you're enrolled in the cohort is learn Figma beforehand. It'll take you less than a week. So those are my two suggestions, right? For anybody who's already enrolled. For people who are not enrolled, applications are open for just another week. If you're watching this later, you can definitely come to the website and see whether we have a cohort coming up. In general, we only do maybe about 2 cohorts a year. That's our current pace. But check it out. Check it out if that sounds that's like something that's interesting to you. Follow-up question from Divyansh, right? Which is how to know about your blockers, the thing that's blocking your growth. The simple answer is, Divyansh, nobody can help you with this, right? Maybe I can help you figure this out if I know your situation, if I know where you're coming from. But then, dude, we're watching this on YouTube, right? We're separated by the screen. So I actually don't know your details. So I actually cannot tell you the answer. But in general, the answer is self-awareness. You have to get to that point where you can find that self-awareness, right? Or one of the reasons we do the cohort is because we have a plan. We have a 3-month plan. So a lot of people who enter to these cohorts, the blockers they have just fall away because we give them a new path to follow, right? So I don't know what your scene is, if you're even thinking of applying or not, right? I'm not going to force you towards that. But your blockers, bad news is you're the only one who can identify them. But the good news is if you can figure that out, if you can figure out how exactly you can find your blockers and fix them, you are above, you will be making faster progress than most people, right? It's very common to not know your own mistakes. It's very common to not know your own blockers. But the thing that separates very successful folks from maybe not so successful folks is that self-awareness. So again, to summarize how to find it, it's one at a time. You probably have one in mind already, one thing that you can change within this week that can help you. Try that out. Is that the thing? You'll figure something else out. It's a continuous process, right? Just get started on that. We'll do a few more, okay? We have another maybe 5 minutes remaining. So I'm not going to be able to take all of these answers, but let me take a few. Anish says, don't you think companies are expecting too much from interns with zero experience in the selection process? Yeah, Anish, maybe in a few cases I have noticed this. However, I think the main reason for this, there are a lot of companies who want to hire interns who don't know what to look out for, right? So what you are seeing is the companies who've decided we are going to hire interns and have started looking for it. Most companies don't even make it to that point. Most companies get stuck over here where they know they want to get somebody, but it's so difficult for them to really find somebody who's good. Because imagine this, right? For entry level positions, you get a lot of applications, and a lot of it is spam, right? When you go to LinkedIn and when you see job posts and it says 120 people applied in the last week, a lot of that is spam. A lot of that is people just applying to any job that they see, right? So most companies don't even get to that point where they publicly look for interns. They never reveal they're looking for interns. But if somebody cold emails them this that, then they hire. So I don't know what the solution is, right? Um, there are definitely cases where people expect a lot, but then I think the reason companies put that up, the reason companies put out these this high bar for applications is in general for entry level positions, quality of applications is really bad. And I can tell you this as somebody who's been in a hiring position before. The quality sucks. So if you are an intern and you really want to stand out, try getting creative. Try not applying through the way everybody else is applying, right? Do a cold email, do a cold outreach. It's a lot of times it's not necessary that the reason a lot of times companies have that high bar is not because that high bar is needed. It's because they put that high bar so that losers don't apply. um, and again, no offense meant to anyone, but it happens, bro. क्या कर सकते हैं, राइट? एक तो ये बात भी है कि हम सिर्फ डिज़ाइनर के पर्सपेक्टिव से सोचते हैं, राइट? कभी आप कंपनी के पर्सपेक्टिव से सोचो कि वो अगर मुझे रिप्लाई नहीं कर रहे या अगर कुछ चल नहीं रहा है तो उनकी तरफ क्या चल रहा है, राइट? व्हाट्स गोइंग ऑन इन देयर एंड. And a lot of times you can find out good creative solutions through that. Yeah. Big Book World. So one set of acceptance mails does go out today. So Big Book World, if you're lucky, you'll probably receive an email from me sometime today. This is the final week of applications. So we're going to be closing this and starting. Cohort 4 starts, I think, end of July, the last week of July. That's when our onboarding week is. Huh, bro. It happens. Anurag's question about assignments as well. This is a great question, Anurag, but I think I'll probably answer this in the next one because it is a pretty big one. This is something that we can talk a lot about in depth. How to tackle design assignments. Should you even apply to companies that have it? What kind of companies have it? This is something that we can go deeper. Yeah. But for now, okay, I'm going to wrap up real quick. For folks who want to learn UI UX design who don't know where to begin, you're in the perfect place. We have a playlist on this exact channel. It's called Design Crash Course. It is a playlist that will help you get from zero to something, right? To something. You won't be a beginner anymore. You'll have a basic understanding of how it works. But you have to be motivated to make it through that playlist. So you can find that playlist on my channel. Besides that, thank you all for joining. This has been Let's Talk Design number 3, right? We'll do 3 more questions, okay? 3 more questions, final 3 questions for tonight. Question number 1. Motion graphics versus graphic design, brackets UI UX, which is Arshad, you have no clue what you're talking about. Let me just be honest with you, right? Motion graphics and graphic design and UI UX are actually three different fields, not two different fields. So if you're trying to figure out what has more money, whichever you are good at has the most money. You cannot be average and expect to make a lot of money, right? So don't, instead of trying to figure out which industry has a high average, pick one where you can stay and work for a couple of years such that you become really good, right? So that's the problem with that question. Okay, so that's one. I have two more questions to go. All top autos. Bzz. Bro, what's your question? What's your question? Rishabh Thakur, what's the highest salary for UI UX designer? Rishabh, if you're somewhere around 5 years of experience with working at a company like maybe Swiggy, Unacademy, right? Good companies, you can expect to make about 35 lakhs, right? Within 5 years. The highest, I know designers who are making crores, right? Designers who I directly know who are making a couple of crores every year. 1 crore, 1.5, 3.5, 5.5, 6 crores a year. The way you get that is not really through salary, but it's joining a startup and getting equity in that startup, or starting your own business as a designer. So that's the answer. What's the highest salary, bro? There are designers making crores, right? And after some point, it's hard because as you get to the higher numbers, it's not salary anymore. It's equity, it's revenue, right? So at that point, you probably can't even call them a designer. They are somebody who's working at a very higher leverage position. They're not just a designer. Final question, okay? Question number 3. All top autos. Bro, this is sad, bro. You're asking all this, but I'm not able to see your question. Okay, this is our final question. Do graphic designers get paid as much as UI UX designers? On average, no. On an average, UI UX designers typically make more, but at good companies, they probably make something very similar. So, my experience from Unacademy is UI UX designer make, it's not too different. I will say this, really, really good graphic designers are also in high demand and low supply, right? There are, again, think about from the company's perspective. When you get applications for a position like graphic designer, most of it is just spam. Most of it is people who've tried Photoshop twice and they're like, हाँ कर तो सकता हूँ मैं कर तो सकता हूँ, right? It's really bad quality. So if you are an amazing graphic designer, you will get paid almost the same as a UI UX designer. But again, if you're the kind of graphic designer who just makes banners, who just makes ads, who just makes, was more of execution work rather than strategic work, you're probably not going to get paid a lot, right? You want to join a company where it's not just you churning out graphics like in bulk, right? In general, the roles that you get paid higher for are the ones that require strategy, that require some level of independent thinking that not everybody can do. If you're just going to be a machine churning out designs, machines are super easy to replace. So, folks, with that, thank you all for joining. This has been episode number 3. I will see you in the next stream. Until then, keep practicing and stay creative. Bye-bye.